I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us. That night, I received a call about a missing hiker in the area. My heart raced as I gathered my gear and headed out with a search team. The moon hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows among the trees. As we searched, the atmosphere grew heavier, an almost palpable sense of dread enveloped us. Hours passed without a trace of the hiker. Just as we were about to regroup, I heard a chilling sound, a low growl that sent shivers down my spine. It was unlike anything I had ever encountered in the wilderness. I thought I would be protecting something sacred, but that illusion quickly shattered. It all began one evening as I was finishing my rounds. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness, a silence that felt almost unnatural. As I walked back to my truck, I noticed something unusual: a series of strange markings on the ground near a popular hiking trail. They were deep, claw-like scratches, unlike anything I had ever seen before. My instincts told me to report it, but a part of me was drawn to investigate further. The next day, I returned to the site with a colleague. We examined the scratches and found tufts of fur caught on nearby branches. Something felt off, but we brushed it off as the remnants of a wild animal. However, the unease continued to gnaw at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us. That night, I received a call about a missing hiker in the area. My heart raced as I gathered my gear and headed out with a search team. The moon hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows among the trees. As we searched, the atmosphere grew heavier, an almost palpable sense of dread enveloped us. Hours passed without a trace of the hiker. Just as we were about to regroup, I heard a chilling sound, a low growl that sent shivers down my spine. It was unlike anything I had ever encountered in the wilderness. I turned to flee, but the ground trembled, and shadows seemed to twist and writhe around me. In that moment, I realized I was not just facing a creature. I was confronting my own hubris. I had underestimated the forces of nature, the ancient power that resided in those woods. I stumbled back to my truck, breathless and terrified. But it was the state of the body that left us paralyzed with fear, mauled and torn. As if something had dragged him there, panic set in. We turned to leave, but the growling intensified, echoing through the trees. In a flash, I caught sight of something massive lurking in the shadows. It was not a bear or any animal I could identify. It was something otherworldly. Its eyes glowed like embers, and its massive frame was cloaked in darkness. We ran, adrenaline propelling us forward as the creature roared, shaking the ground beneath our feet. We made it back to the ranger station, breathless and terrified. I reported the incident, but the higher-ups dismissed my claims of a supernatural creature. They attributed the hiker's death to a bear attack and urged us to move on. But I knew what I had seen, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was at play. In the following weeks, more hikers went missing, each case dismissed by authorities as unfortunate accidents. But the fear in the community was palpable. Campers reported hearing strange noises at night, and I started receiving messages from locals warning me to leave the park. They spoke of an ancient legend of a guardian spirit that had turned malevolent, punishing those who entered its domain. Despite my instincts screaming at me to escape, I felt compelled to stay. I wanted to uncover the truth, to protect those who ventured into the park. But the deeper I delved, the more I felt the weight of the forest pressing down on me. I began to have nightmares, visions of the creature, of the lost souls wandering the woods. Finally, one fateful night, I decided to confront my fears. Armed with a flashlight and my courage, I returned to the clearing where we had found the hiker's body. The air was thick with foreboding, and the moonlight barely penetrated the canopy above. As I stood there, heart pounding, I felt the presence of something watching me. Suddenly, the growl erupted from the darkness, louder and closer than before. I turned to flee, but the ground trembled, and shadows seemed to twist and writhe around me. In that moment, I realized I was not just facing a creature. I was confronting my own hubris. I had underestimated the forces of nature, the ancient power that resided in those woods. I stumbled back to my truck, breathless and terrified. Sometimes the most beautiful places hide the darkest secrets. I learned the hard way that not all guardians of the forest are benevolent. My time at Yellowstone was a mistake I will never forget, a chilling reminder that nature is not to be trifled with. As I reflect on my time as a park ranger in Yellowstone, I realized that the experience was not just about the terrifying events I faced, but also about the rich tapestry of characters and the intricate world around us. Sometimes the most beautiful places hide the darkest secrets. I learned the hard way that not all guardians of the forest are benevolent. My time at Yellowstone was a mistake I will never forget, a chilling reminder that nature is not to be trifled with. As I reflect on my time as a park ranger in Yellowstone, I realized that the experience was not just about the terrifying events I faced, but also about the rich tapestry of characters and the intricate world around us. Days turned into a week, and despite our efforts, no trace of her was found. The heartbreak of her disappearance reverberated through the community. I felt a heavy weight of responsibility, as if I had failed not just Sarah, but everyone who had trusted us to protect them. Her absence lingered in the air, a constant reminder of the delicate balance between adventure and safety. As the search efforts continued, I found myself haunted by the feeling that something sinister lurked in the shadows. She was a wealth of knowledge, her deep connection to the land evident in every word she spoke. Margaret often shared tales of her early days in the park, recounting encounters with wildlife and the profound lessons she learned from nature. "The forest demands respect," she would say, her eyes sparkling with wisdom. "It can be both a sanctuary and a predator. You must learn to listen." Margaret taught me about the delicate balance of ecosystems, the interdependence of species, and the ancient stories woven into the landscapes. She had a way of making the park feel alive, as if the rocks and trees were holding memories of those who had walked there before. Her reverence for the land was infectious, and it inspired me to view my role not just as a protector, but as a steward of its history. Then there was Tom, a local who worked as a guide. He was rugged and weathered, with a deep familiarity with the park's hidden trails and secret spots. Tom often spoke of his childhood spent exploring the wilderness, recounting adventures that seemed straight out of a storybook. Yet, beneath his jovial exterior lay a profound respect for the dangers of the wild. "Nature is beautiful, but it's also brutal," he would warn. "You can't let your guard down, not even for a second." Tom had witnessed the park's darker side, sharing stories of accidents and close calls. His experiences served as cautionary tales, grounding my understanding of the risks inherent in our work. He had seen friends go missing, and his voice would drop to a whisper when he recounted the search efforts that followed. "Sometimes you find them, sometimes you don't," he would say, his eyes reflecting a haunting sadness. His stories deepened my awareness of the fragility of life in the wilderness, reinforcing the notion that we were merely visitors in a vast, untamed world. The park itself was a character in its own right, a sprawling canvas of contrasting beauty and danger. The geysers that erupted with violent force served as reminders of the Earth's raw power, while the tranquil lakes offered moments of serenity. Each day, I witnessed the park shift and change, revealing its many faces. The morning mist that clung to the trees felt magical, while the thunderous storms that rolled in could turn the landscape into a nightmarish scene within moments. As I delved deeper into my role, I began to understand the intricate relationships among the flora and fauna. The way the elk grazed peacefully, the way the wolves hunted in packs, each action was part of a larger cycle of life and death. I learned to identify the subtle signs of nature's rhythms, the rustle of leaves signaling a predator's approach, the distant howl of wolves echoing through the valleys. Yet, my encounters with the darker aspects of the park began to overshadow the beauty. The first missing hiker case I handled was a turning point for me. The victim was a young woman named Sarah, an avid hiker who had come to explore the park's trails. I vividly remember the frantic energy of the search party, the anxiety palpable as we combed through the underbrush, calling her name into the void. Days turned into a week, and despite our efforts, no trace of her was found. The heartbreak of her disappearance reverberated through the community. I felt a heavy weight of responsibility, as if I had failed not just Sarah, but everyone who had trusted us to protect them. Her absence lingered in the air, a constant reminder of the delicate balance between adventure and safety. As the search efforts continued, I found myself haunted by the feeling that something sinister lurked in the shadows. Each new disappearance sent shockwaves through our ranks, deepening the sense of dread that had settled over the park. Margaret, my mentor, became increasingly concerned. She had seen her share of tragedies in her decades of service, but this felt different. One evening, as we sat by the campfire after a long day of patrolling, she leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do you believe in the stories?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Her gaze turned serious, reflecting the flickering flames. Every place has its spirits, both good and bad. They remind us of our connection to the land, but we must tread carefully. Some stories are warnings. Her words resonated deeply, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the park was trying to communicate something to us. The more I learned about its history, the indigenous tribes that revered the land, the pioneers who had faced its challenges, the more I understood that Yellowstone was a living entity with its own voice. As the weeks passed, the sense of dread grew. I became increasingly aware of my surroundings, the shadows that danced just beyond my vision, the rustling leaves that felt more ominous than usual. The stories of missing hikers and strange occurrences began to intertwine with my own experiences, blurring the lines between reality and the supernatural. One evening, I decided to confront my fears. Armed with a flashlight and a notebook, I set out on a solitary hike to the clearing where we had found Sarah's belongings. I wanted to understand, to connect with whatever presence lingered there. As I walked, I felt a chill in the air, the kind that made the hair on my arms stand on end. When I reached the clearing, silence enveloped me. The moonlight bathed the area in an ethereal glow, and I could almost feel the weight of the past pressing down on me. I closed my eyes, hoping to attune myself to the energies around me. In that stillness, I heard a faint whisper, a rustle in the bushes, and my heart raced. Was it the wind or something more? I opened my eyes, feeling a sense of connection to the land that both terrified and fascinated me. The park was alive, and in that moment, I understood that my role as a ranger was not just about protection, but also about respect. It was a reminder that the wilderness held secrets beyond our comprehension, and sometimes those secrets demanded a deeper understanding. In the end, my experiences in Yellowstone transformed my perception of nature and my role as a steward. The characters I encountered, the wise elder, the rugged guide, the haunting spirits of the land, shaped my journey, revealing the intricate tapestry of life woven into the fabric of the wilderness. I learned that fear could coexist with respect, that the beauty of nature often came with a shadow. My time in the park was a profound exploration of both the light and dark, a reminder that the wilderness is a complex world where every element plays a crucial role in the story of life. As my time in Yellowstone continued, the unsettling experiences began to escalate. What started as a creeping sense of unease transformed into a palpable tension that permeated the park. The initial missing hiker, Sarah, had cast a long shadow over our community, but as the days turned into weeks, it became clear that her disappearance was not an isolated incident, the first signs of the growing conflict manifested in the form of whispers among the rangers. It seemed that every few weeks, another person went missing, and the stories began to circulate, tales of strange sounds echoing through the woods, of shadows moving just out of sight, and of feelings of being watched. Each new disappearance sent shockwaves through our ranks, deepening the sense of dread that had settled over the park. Margaret, my mentor, became increasingly concerned. She had seen her share of tragedies in her decades of service, but this felt different. One evening, as we sat by the campfire after a long day of patrolling, she leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's something in these woods, something ancient," she said, her gaze fixed on the flames. "The legends of this land are not just stories. They are warnings." I listened intently, feeling a chill run down my spine. "You mean the guardian spirit?" I asked, recalling the tales I had dismissed. She nodded solemnly. "Yes, but this spirit is not what it once was. It has become vengeful, angry at those who disrespect the land." The more I heard, the more I felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on me. I had come to Yellowstone to protect the beauty of the wilderness, but now I felt as though I was part of something much larger, a battle between respect for nature and the consequences of our actions. The park, it seemed, was fighting back. The whispers faded, replaced by an overwhelming silence that pressed in on me. I felt the weight of the spirit's anger, the consequences of our ignorance manifesting in a visceral way. It was as if the park was awakening, and I was caught in its wrath. In that moment, I understood the gravity of our situation. We were not just searching for a lost boy. We were entangled in a conflict that transcended our understanding. The atmosphere was heavy with worry, and as we combed through the underbrush, I couldn't shake the feeling of being followed. After hours of searching, we stumbled upon the boy's backpack, abandoned near a gnarled tree. My heart sank as I realized the implications. "We need to keep looking," I urged the group, but the unease was palpable. We pressed on, calling the boy's name into the growing darkness, the forest growing more ominous with each passing moment. That night, we set up a command center at the ranger station, and the mood was grim. As the hours dragged on, I felt a sense of desperation creeping in. With each unsuccessful search, the legend of the vengeful spirit loomed larger in my mind. It was as if the park was testing us, challenging our resolve and our understanding of the land. During the late-night briefing, I noticed Tom sitting at the back, his face drawn and pale. He had been instrumental in leading search efforts, but he seemed haunted by the weight of the boy's disappearance. "Something's not right," he said, breaking the silence. "This isn't just bad luck. We're dealing with something more." His words resonated with the group, and a murmur of agreement followed. We had all sensed it, the growing tension, the feeling that we were being watched. I felt compelled to address the situation. "We need to consider the legends," I said, my voice steady despite the unease in the room. "We've dismissed them for too long. If there is a spirit, we need to understand what it wants." The room fell silent, and I could see the doubt on their faces. But I pressed on. "This park is more than just a collection of trees and animals. It has a history, a spirit that deserves respect. If we're going to protect it, we need to acknowledge that." The next day, we set out with renewed purpose. The search for the boy continued, but now we also sought to understand the land's history. We visited the local tribal center, hoping to gain insight into the legends that had been passed down through generations. The elders spoke of the guardian spirit, once a protector of the land, who had become enraged by the destruction wrought by humans' pollution, overhunting, and disrespect for nature. One elder, a woman named Nora, shared a chilling story. "The spirit watches, waiting for those who take more than they give," she explained. "When it feels threatened, it strikes back. The missing are not just accidents. They are a warning, a reminder of the balance that must be maintained. Her words resonated deeply with me. I began to see the park not just as a place to protect, but as a living entity worthy of reverence. The more I learned, the more I realized that our struggle was not just against the elements, but against our own ignorance. As we returned to the search, I felt a shift within myself. I was no longer just a ranger. I was a bridge between the past and the present, tasked with honoring the stories that had shaped this land. But the conflict was far from over. One fateful night, as we continued our search for the boy, something changed. The air grew thick with tension, and the familiar sounds of the forest fell silent. We gathered at the clearing where the boy's backpack had been found, the moon casting an eerie glow over the area. As we called out for him, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over me. Then, just as I was about to suggest we regroup, I heard a faint whisper carried by the wind. It was a child's voice, calling for help. My heart raced as I followed the sound, leading the group deeper into the forest. The whispers grew louder, guiding us through the darkness, but a sense of foreboding gnawed at my instincts. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath our feet, and a low growl echoed through the trees. My heart raced as shadows began to dance around us, swirling and shifting. "Get back!" I shouted, trying to maintain control, but panic erupted as the group scattered in fear. In the chaos, I found myself alone, surrounded by the darkness. The whispers faded, replaced by an overwhelming silence that pressed in on me. I felt the weight of the spirit's anger, the consequences of our ignorance manifesting in a visceral way. It was as if the park was awakening, and I was caught in its wrath. In that moment, I understood the gravity of our situation. We were not just searching for a lost boy. We were entangled in a conflict that transcended our understanding. The park was alive, and it demanded respect, accountability, and a recognition of the delicate balance we had disrupted. As the shadows closed in, I took a deep breath and focused on the legends that had guided us thus far. I recalled Nora's words and the importance of acknowledging the spirit's presence. "We are sorry," I called into the darkness, my voice trembling but resolute. "We have disrespected the land. We seek to protect it and honor its history." The growling ceased, and an eerie stillness enveloped me. Slowly, the shadows receded, revealing the familiar silhouettes of my fellow rangers, their expressions a mix of fear and confusion. In that instant, I realized that we had a choice: to confront our fears and acknowledge the spirit of the land, or to succumb to the darkness that threatened to consume us. The conflict had escalated, but it was not just about survival. It was about understanding the deeper meaning of our existence within this vast natural world. I knew we had to unite, to honor the spirit of the park, and forge a new path forward, one rooted in respect, humility, and a commitment to balance. As we regrouped, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The journey was far from over, but together we could face whatever lay ahead. The park had tested us, revealing the complexities of our relationship with nature, and now it was up to us to rise to the challenge. The battle was just beginning, and the fate of both the park and our community hung in the balance. As my time in Yellowstone unfolded, the central conflict regarding the missing hikers and the mysterious spirit of the land was intertwined with various subplots that added layers of complexity to my experience as a park ranger. Each subplot revealed deeper truths about the characters, the park, and our relationship with nature, enriching the narrative with personal stakes and communal challenges. One of the most poignant subplots involved Tom, the rugged local guide. While he was a vital part of our search efforts, his personal struggles often overshadowed his bravery. Tom had a young daughter named Lily, who was the light of his life. Just a few months before the boy went missing, he had taken her on a hiking trip in the park, hoping to instill in her the same love for nature that he had. However, during that trip, They had an unsettling encounter, a near miss with a bear that left Lily terrified of the wilderness. Tom's guilt about that incident weighed heavily on him. He had not only failed to protect his daughter, but had also inadvertently fostered a fear that might keep her from experiencing the beauty of the park. As the search for the missing boy intensified, I saw the conflict within him grow. He grappled with his responsibilities as a father and a guide, torn between the desire to keep Lily safe and the urge to continue his work in the park. This internal struggle came to a head during a tense moment in the search. After a long day of fruitless searching, Tom received a call from home. Lily had had another nightmare about the bear, and she was pleading for him to come home. I could see the turmoil on his face as he wrestled with the decision to leave the search and comfort his daughter, or stay and pursue the boy. What if it were her out there? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. In that moment, I understood that the stakes were personal for him, intertwining his love for his daughter with his commitment to the land. In a separate thread, my relationship with Margaret deepened as we faced the escalating tensions. She had become a mentor, but her own past experiences haunted her. Margaret had lost a friend in a tragic accident in the park, a ranger who had been swept away in a sudden flood. The loss had left scars that never fully healed, and as the park faced new dangers, I could see her fear of history repeating itself. Margaret's wisdom was often tempered by her personal grief, and I realized she was not just a guide but a survivor grappling with her own demons. One evening, as we sat by the fire, Margaret shared her story. "Every time I step into these woods, I remember him," she said, her voice trembling. "He was supposed to be here with me. I can't let that happen again." Her vulnerability opened my eyes to the emotional weight rangers carry, and it became clear that our fight against the spirit of the park was also a fight against our own pasts. It was a reminder that the wilderness holds both beauty and tragedy, and we must learn to navigate both. Another subplot emerged from our interactions with the local community. The town surrounding the park had its own complexities, with residents divided over the park's management and the increasing number of visitors. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the landscape, and the air was charged with an electric energy. We had just returned from a long day of searching, our spirits weary yet determined. In the ranger station, a sense of urgency enveloped us as we gathered for a briefing. She had lost her husband to a tragic accident while hiking in the area, and her grief had transformed into anger. Clara believed that the park was not doing enough to ensure safety for its visitors and blamed the rangers for the ongoing disappearances. Her pain was palpable, and it resonated with many in the community who felt similarly abandoned by the system. As tensions rose, I found myself caught in the middle. Clara's accusations weighed heavily on me, as I felt the burden of responsibility for both the park and its visitors. I understood her anger, but I also knew that the park's beauty was intertwined with its dangers. I sought to engage with Clara and the community, hoping to bridge the gap between the rangers and the locals. "We need to work together," I urged during one particularly charged meeting. "We can't protect this land without your voices. Your experiences matter." This plea for collaboration opened up dialogues that had been stifled for too long. Slowly, Clara began to share her story, and the community started to listen. In turn, I shared the legends and the importance of respecting the land, hoping to shift the perspective from blame to understanding. It was a slow process, but it laid the groundwork for a more united front in facing the challenges ahead. As the search for the missing boy continued, a subplot involving the park's wildlife took shape. The increasing number of sightings of wolves near the campgrounds sparked debates among rangers and locals alike. Some viewed the wolves as a threat, while others recognized their vital role in the ecosystem. This tension mirrored the broader conflict between humans and nature, highlighting our struggle to coexist with the wild. One night, while on patrol, I came across a pack of wolves in the distance. They were beautiful, their silhouettes framed against the moonlight. But as I watched them, I felt a sense of foreboding. The previous stories of missing hikers flooded my mind. Had the wolves become part of the larger conflict? Or were they simply following their instincts, as nature intended? The complexities of our relationship with wildlife became a focal point in our discussions about conservation. We debated the need for education and awareness, realizing that fear often stemmed from misunderstanding. I organized workshops to educate the community about the importance of wolves and their role in maintaining balance within the ecosystem. Slowly, perceptions began to shift, and the dialogue transformed from fear to appreciation. As these subplots unfolded, the main conflict grew more intricate. Each character's personal struggles, the community's divisions, and the challenges posed by the spirit of the park intertwined, creating a rich narrative that revealed the complexities of life in Yellowstone. The stakes were not just about missing hikers. They encompassed the very essence of our humanity and our relationship with the natural world. In the end, the subplots served to deepen our understanding of the park, highlighting the interconnectedness of all living things. The fight against the spirit of the land became a metaphor for our own internal battles, and as we sought to protect the wilderness, we also learned valuable lessons about ourselves. The journey ahead would require collaboration, respect, and an acknowledgement of the delicate balance that exists between humanity and nature. It was a realization that the real strength lay not just in our ability to confront danger, but in our willingness to listen, learn, and grow together in harmony with the land. The tension in Yellowstone reached a breaking point one fateful evening that would forever alter the course of our lives. As the search for the missing boy continued to dominate our thoughts, the atmosphere around the park had become thick with anxiety and uncertainty. The unsettling whispers of legends and the palpable fear of the spirit lurking in the shadows had merged into a singular force, and I could feel the weight of it pressing down on all of us. It was a night like no other. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the landscape, and the air was charged with an electric energy. We had just returned from a long day of searching, our spirits weary yet determined. In the ranger station, a sense of urgency enveloped us as we gathered for a briefing. Tom, still grappling with his own fears about Lily, was especially tense. I could see the lines of worry etched on his face as he absent-mindedly fiddled with his flashlight. "I can't shake the feeling that we're running out of time," Tom said, his voice low. It was a challenge, an invitation to confront our fears and the consequences of our actions. "Do not harm it," I whispered, my voice trembling but resolute. "We are here to listen." The wolf paused, its piercing gaze locked onto mine. The tension in the air was palpable, and I could sense the collective breath of my fellow rangers held in anticipation. I stepped forward, breaking the circle, feeling an inexplicable pull toward the creature. "We seek understanding and redemption," I continued, my heart racing. "We honor this land and all it represents." Tom, still grappling with his own fears about Lily, was especially tense. I could see the lines of worry etched on his face as he absent-mindedly fiddled with his flashlight. "I can't shake the feeling that we're running out of time," Tom said, his voice low. I suggested we face our fears together, hoping to connect with the land and perhaps even the spirit itself. Many in the room exchanged worried glances, but I could sense a flicker of determination among my fellow rangers. Tom reluctantly agreed, though I could tell he was torn between his duty and his fears for Lily. As we set out into the darkness, the atmosphere shifted. The forest was alive with sound, the rustling of leaves, the distant calls of owls, and the soft crunch of our boots on the forest floor. But despite the familiar sounds of nature, an unsettling silence loomed over our group. Each of us was lost in our thoughts, grappling with the weight of our fears, regrets, and hopes. When we reached the clearing, The moon bathed the area in an otherworldly light. I could feel the energy shift as we gathered in a circle, the air growing heavier with anticipation. I took a deep breath and spoke, my voice steady but filled with emotion. We're here to confront the spirit of this land, to acknowledge its power, and to seek understanding. We need to honor what has been lost and what we stand to protect. As I finished speaking, a sudden gust of wind swept through the clearing, sending a chill down my spine. The trees seemed to whisper, and I felt an almost tangible presence surrounding us. My heart raced, but I pressed on. If there is a spirit here, we ask for your guidance. We seek to understand what we must do to restore balance. The wind intensified, swirling around us, and I could feel the weight of the park's history pressing in. It was as if the land itself was responding to our plea. I glanced around at my fellow rangers, their expressions a mix of fear and resolve. In that moment, I knew we were at a turning point, not just in the search for the boy, but in our understanding of the land and our place within it. Then, as if summoned by our words, a distant howl pierced the silence, echoing through the trees. It was a sound filled with both sorrow and power, resonating in the depths of my soul. The howling grew closer, and I felt a primal instinct urging me to react. My heart raced as I turned to my colleagues, the fear in their eyes mirroring my own. But before we could fully comprehend what was happening, the atmosphere shifted abruptly. I could feel the energy shift as we gathered in a circle, the air growing heavier with anticipation. I took a deep breath and spoke, my voice steady but filled with emotion. We're here to confront the spirit of this land, to acknowledge its power, and to seek understanding. We need to honor what has been lost and what we stand to protect. It stood at the edge of the clearing, watching us with an intensity that paralyzed us. I could feel the weight of its gaze, as if it were assessing our intentions, weighing our worthiness. The legends flooded back to me, the stories of the guardian spirit that had taken the form of a wolf, protecting the land from those who dared to disrespect it. In that moment, I understood. This was not just a creature of the night. It was a manifestation of the spirit itself, a reminder of the balance we had disrupted. The wolf stepped forward, and I felt a surge of energy course through my body. It was a challenge, an invitation to confront our fears and the consequences of our actions. Do not harm it, I whispered, my voice trembling but resolute. We are here to listen. The wolf paused, its piercing gaze locked onto mine. The tension in the air was palpable, and I could sense the collective breath of my fellow rangers held in anticipation. I stepped forward, breaking the circle, feeling an inexplicable pull toward the creature. We seek understanding and redemption, I continued, my heart racing. We honor this land and all it represents. The wolf remained still, its breath visible in the cold air. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. I could feel the history of the land swirling around us, a tapestry of stories woven together by those who had come before. The wolf's presence was both intimidating and awe-inspiring, a reminder of the power of nature and the responsibility we bore as its stewards. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the wolf turned and vanished into the darkness, leaving us breathless and shaken. The wind died down, and a profound silence enveloped the clearing. I could feel the weight of what had just transpired settling over us, a turning point, not just in our search, but in our understanding of the park itself. In the aftermath, we gathered our thoughts and feelings, processing what we had witnessed. The encounter with the wolf had ignited a spark of determination within us. We were no longer just rangers. We were allies of the land, committed to restoring the balance we had disrupted. Tom, visibly shaken, spoke up. I felt it too. We have to honor this place, not just for us, but for our families, for everyone. Margaret nodded, her eyes glistening with newfound resolve. This is a call to action. We must work together with the community to educate, to protect, and to respect the land that sustains us. In that moment, clarity washed over me. The conflict we faced was not just about the missing boy or the spirit of the park. It was about our collective responsibility to the land and each other. We needed to foster understanding, to bridge the gap between the rangers and the community, and to honor the rich history that surrounded us. As we made our way back to the ranger station, a sense of purpose filled the air. We were united in our mission, ready to confront the challenges ahead. The turning point had shifted the narrative. It was no longer just a story of fear, but one of hope, collaboration, and respect for the land we loved. The next day, we organized a community meeting, inviting locals to share their stories and experiences. We sought to create a dialogue about the importance of preserving the park and the legends that shaped it. Together, we would honor the memory of those lost and learn from the spirit that guided us. In that moment of unity, I realized that we were all part of something larger than ourselves, a community bound by our connection to the land. The spirit of Yellowstone had revealed itself, and we were ready to embrace its lessons. The journey ahead would be daunting, but we were no longer afraid. We had turned a corner, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, the aftermath of our fateful encounter with the wolf in Yellowstone marked a pivotal moment in our collective journey. The air was thick with a mixture of apprehension and newfound determination as we returned to the ranger station. Each of us carried the weight of what we had witnessed, an encounter that transcended our understanding of the natural world and our place within it. The consequences of that night rippled through our lives and the community, igniting a series of reactions that would redefine our mission in the park. In the days following the encounter, the story of the wolf spread like wildfire through the local community. Whispers turned into conversations, and conversations became narratives woven into the fabric of the town's lore. Some viewed the wolf as a guardian spirit, a protector of the land that demanded respect and reverence. Others, however, remained skeptical, dismissing the encounter as mere folklore or the result of collective hysteria. Clara, the woman who had lost her husband in the park, was among the skeptics. She confronted me one afternoon at the local coffee shop, her expression a mix of disbelief and anger. "You think that wolf cares about us?" she challenged, her voice rising. "It's just an animal, and it doesn't change the fact that people are disappearing." Her words stung, and I could feel the frustration boiling within me. "Clara, we can't ignore the connection we have to this land. The legends have meaning. They remind us of our responsibility to respect nature," I replied, my voice steady despite my rising emotions. "Responsibility? What good is that when it doesn't bring back the people we've lost?" She shot back, her eyes fierce. The pain in her voice was palpable, and I recognized that her anger stemmed from deep grief and fear, emotions that many in the community shared. As the days turned into weeks, the tension between the rangers and the community grew more pronounced. Our efforts to educate locals about the importance of wildlife and the interconnectedness of the ecosystem were met with mixed reactions. Some embraced our message, eager to learn and engage, while others continued to harbor resentment, feeling that the park was a danger rather than a sanctuary. Tom's internal struggle also intensified. He had attended several community meetings, hoping to bridge the gap between the rangers and the townspeople. Yet, every time he tried to speak about the need for collaboration, he was met with resistance. "You can't just expect us to trust you," a local farmer had said during one heated discussion. "Your job is to protect the tourists, not us." Tom felt the weight of his dual roles as a father and a ranger. Lily's fear of the wilderness loomed large, and he struggled to balance his commitment to the park with his responsibility to ensure her safety. The pressure was palpable, and he often confided in me during our late-night patrols, his voice heavy with doubt. "What if I can't protect her? What if I'm putting her in danger just by being here?" His vulnerability resonated with me, and I realized that the conflict was not just external. Clara, initially resistant, became an unexpected ally, helping to bridge the gap between the rangers and the townspeople. Her story, once a source of anger, became a beacon for change. As we worked together, relationships began to mend. People who once viewed the park as a threat started to see it as a shared responsibility. Tom's efforts to educate locals about the ecological role of wolves began to gain traction, and the fear that had once divided us transformed into a collective determination to protect the land and each other. However, the tension was not entirely resolved. I organized a community forum, inviting locals to share their experiences with the park, both its beauty and its dangers. I reached out to Clara, hoping she would be willing to share her story. To my surprise, she agreed, recognizing that her pain could help foster a dialogue. The night of the forum, the ranger station was packed. Tension filled the air as we gathered, each face reflecting a mix of curiosity and hostility. I opened the floor, encouraging everyone to speak freely. Clara's turn came, and as she stood before the crowd, her voice trembled, but grew stronger with each word. "I lost my husband here," she began, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "He loved these woods, but they took him from us. I don't want anyone else to suffer like we have." Her vulnerability struck a chord, and the room fell silent, the weight of her grief palpable. As she spoke, I saw the community begin to shift. People leaned in, listening, their defenses slowly lowering. Clara's pain resonated with many, and for the first time, I sensed a willingness to engage in a real conversation about the risks and rewards of living alongside such a powerful wilderness. After she finished, I stood up, my heart racing. "We're not here to dismiss your fears," I said, meeting Clara's gaze. "We need to acknowledge the dangers while also respecting the land. It's a delicate balance, and we all have a role to play. Together, we can find ways to protect both the community and the park." Tom chimed in, sharing his own fears for Lily and the responsibility he felt as a father. "I want her to love this place, to roam freely in the woods. But I also want her to be safe," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "We can't do this alone. We need your help." The conversation began to flow more freely after that. Locals shared their own stories of fear and loss, and as we spoke, a sense of community began to flourish amidst the pain. The forum transformed from a confrontation into a cathartic experience, allowing everyone to voice their concerns and hopes. In the weeks that followed, the atmosphere in the community began to shift. We started developing a collaborative approach to safety and education, organizing workshops on wildlife awareness and the importance of respecting nature. Clara, initially resistant, became an unexpected ally, helping to bridge the gap between the rangers and the townspeople. Her story, once a source of anger, became a beacon for change. As we worked together, relationships began to mend. People who once viewed the park as a threat started to see it as a shared responsibility. Tom's efforts to educate locals about the ecological role of wolves began to gain traction, and the fear that had once divided us transformed into a collective determination to protect the land and each other. However, the tension was not entirely resolved. There were still skeptics, and the threat of the spirit lingered in the background. As the search for the missing boy dragged on, I could feel the unease bubbling beneath the surface. The fear of the unknown still haunted us, and with every passing day, the pressure mounted. One evening, as I was closing up the ranger station, I received a call that made my heart drop. We had received reports of strange howls echoing through the park, and sightings of shadowy figures near popular hiking trails. Clara, who had become a pillar of strength for many, began to show signs of weariness. One evening, she confided in me, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if we never find him? What if all this is for nothing?" Her question struck a chord. I shared my own fears, acknowledging the weight of uncertainty that loomed over us all. "We can't control the outcome," I said. "We can't let the legends control our actions. We have to face whatever is out there with courage and unity." As we discussed potential strategies, I could see the determination growing in the room. The community had begun to reclaim its narrative, transforming fear into a shared mission. Together, we would confront the darkness, armed not just with flashlights and radios, but with the strength of our connections and a commitment to protecting the land we all cherished. In that moment, I realized that the consequences of our actions had shaped not only our response to the park's dangers, but also our understanding of ourselves and each other. The journey ahead would test our resolve, but we were no longer alone. We had forged a community bound by shared experiences, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in the shadowy wilderness of Yellowstone. In the months following our community forum, a palpable sense of transformation enveloped Yellowstone. The collective resolve forged in the wake of our fears began to manifest in tangible actions. As rangers and locals worked together, we discovered that overcoming our challenges required not just courage, but also vulnerability and a willingness to grow. The search for the missing boy continued to weigh heavily on our hearts. After our night hike, he had taken a more active approach to help her overcome her fear of the wilderness. Together, they explored the safer trails, teaching her about the flora and fauna, fostering a sense of curiosity rather than fear. I often joined them, watching as Lily's confidence blossomed. The girl who once trembled at the thought of the woods was now laughing, her eyes sparkling with wonder as she identified birds and tracked animal footprints. One afternoon, during a community-led nature walk, Lily spotted a deer in the distance. "I used to believe the park was a threat, something to fear," she began, her voice steady. "But now I see it as a part of us, a place where we can learn and grow together. We owe it to ourselves to protect it." Her words resonated deeply, and the room filled with nods of agreement. It was a turning point. We were beginning to view the park not as an adversary, but as a vital part of our community. Tom's relationship with Lily also evolved during this period. After our night hike, he had taken a more active approach to help her overcome her fear of the wilderness. Together, they explored the safer trails, teaching her about the flora and fauna, fostering a sense of curiosity rather than fear. I often joined them, watching as Lily's confidence blossomed. The girl who once trembled at the thought of the woods was now laughing, her eyes sparkling with wonder as she identified birds and tracked animal footprints. One afternoon, during a community-led nature walk, Lily spotted a deer in the distance. "Look, Dad, it's beautiful," she exclaimed, her fear replaced with awe. Tom's face lit up with pride as he knelt beside her, sharing in her excitement. In that moment, I realized how far they had come, not just as father and daughter, but as stewards of the land. Their growth mirrored the community's transformation, a testament to the power of connection and understanding. As the search for the boy continued, our efforts to honor the land and respect its spirit became more focused. We initiated educational programs, inviting local schools to participate in environmental stewardship activities. Children learned about the importance of preserving wildlife habitats and the delicate balance of ecosystems. Clara and I often spoke to the kids, sharing stories about the wolf and its significance in the park's lore. The legends that had once seemed intimidating became tools for education and inspiration. However, the journey was not without its setbacks. Despite our best efforts, the search for the boy remained unresolved. Each day without answers felt like an echo of despair, a reminder of the stakes involved in our mission. Clara, who had become a pillar of strength for many, began to show signs of weariness. One evening, she confided in me, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if we never find him? What if all this is for nothing?" Her question struck a chord. I shared my own fears, acknowledging the weight of uncertainty that loomed over us all. "We can't control the outcome," I said. As we prepared for what I sensed would be a climactic moment in our journey, the stakes felt higher than ever. The rangers, alongside locals, had established a series of initiatives aimed at deepening our understanding of the park's ecology and addressing safety concerns. We organized workshops on wildlife behavior, teaching residents how to navigate encounters with bears, wolves, and other creatures. Clara took the lead on these efforts, her passion infectious as she shared her knowledge. Together, we brainstormed new initiatives, focusing on community-driven search efforts and outreach programs to raise awareness about safety in the park. We organized training sessions for locals on how to assist in search operations, ensuring that everyone felt empowered to contribute. As we worked together, I witnessed profound growth among the members of our community. The skepticism that had once divided us transformed into a shared commitment to the land. We began to see each other not as adversaries, but as allies, united by a common purpose. The legends of the park took on new meaning. They became reminders of our responsibility to the land and each other. One day, as I walked through the park, I stumbled upon a group of children planting new saplings as part of our reforestation initiative. Their laughter echoed through the trees, and I felt a surge of hope wash over me. They were learning to care for the land, to understand its cycles and rhythms. It struck me that this was the essence of growth, not just in numbers or statistics, but in the hearts and minds of the next generation. As the seasons changed, so did our community's relationship with the park. We began to celebrate the beauty of Yellowstone, organizing festivals that highlighted its natural wonders. Local artisans showcased their crafts, and families shared stories around bonfires, weaving together the old legends with new memories. Clara and Tom often led guided hikes, sharing their knowledge and passion for the land, and Lily became a beloved figure among the children, inspiring them with her newfound love of nature. Yet, even amid this progress, the unresolved search for the boy lingered in the background. It struck me that this was the essence of growth, not just in numbers or statistics, but in the hearts and minds of the next generation. As the seasons changed, so did our community's relationship with the park. We began to celebrate the beauty of Yellowstone, organizing festivals that highlighted its natural wonders. Local artisans showcased their crafts, and families shared stories around bonfires, weaving together the old legends with new memories. In every tree, every river, they live on. That evening became a turning point for many. The collective grief we had experienced transformed into a shared commitment to protect the land and preserve its stories. We began to see that even in loss, there was an opportunity for growth and connection, a way to honor those who had touched our lives. As spring turned to summer, the park flourished. The flowers bloomed vibrantly, and the air was filled with the sounds of wildlife. Our community continued to thrive, united by the shared experiences that had shaped us. The fear of the unknown was replaced by a sense of wonder and respect for the land we called home. In the heart of Yellowstone, we had learned to overcome our fears and embrace growth, not just as individuals, but as a community. The journey had not been easy, but it had forged bonds that would last a lifetime. We emerged stronger, more resilient, and more connected to each other and the land. The search for the missing boy, while still unresolved, became a catalyst for change, a reminder of the power of community and the importance of honoring the past. As I stood on a ridge overlooking the vast expanse of the park, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We were no longer just rangers or locals. We were stewards of this land, united in our commitment to protect its beauty and its stories for generations to come. As summer settled over Yellowstone, a sense of anticipation hung in the air. The community had transformed into a united front, fostering a profound connection with the land and each other. Yet, beneath the surface of our newfound solidarity, the unresolved search for the missing boy lingered like a shadow, a reminder of the challenges we still faced. As we prepared for what I sensed would be a climactic moment in our journey, the stakes felt higher than ever. The rangers, alongside locals, had established a series of initiatives aimed at deepening our understanding of the park's ecology and addressing safety concerns. We organized workshops on wildlife behavior, teaching residents how to navigate encounters with bears, wolves, and other creatures. Clara took the lead on these efforts, her passion infectious as she shared her knowledge. We can't just fear these animals. We need to learn to coexist with them, she would often say, her eyes sparkling with determination. However, despite our proactive measures, the mystery surrounding the missing boy weighed heavily on our hearts. Each week, we conducted search parties, combing through areas that had not yet been thoroughly explored. The emotional toll was palpable. The uncertainty gnawed at us, reminding us of the fragility of life. I often found myself staring into the depths of the forest, haunted by questions that lingered in the back of my mind. What had happened to him? Would we ever find closure? As our search efforts intensified, I felt a growing sense of urgency. I gathered the rangers for a strategy meeting, hoping to brainstorm new approaches. The room was filled with a mix of determination and anxiety. We need to explore the areas near the river, I suggested, recalling the legends that spoke of the spirit's connection to water. If the boy is out there, he may have sought refuge near a stream or creek. Tom, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. I've heard stories about the old ranger's cabin near the river bend. It's been abandoned for years, but locals say it's haunted. Maybe we should check it out. His suggestion sent a ripple of murmurs through the room. The cabin had long been a topic of intrigue and fear, a place where the boundary between the natural and supernatural felt blurred. Margaret, our seasoned ranger, nodded thoughtfully. The cabin might hold clues. If the boy had wandered off, it's possible he sought shelter there. But we should go prepared. We don't know what we might encounter. Her words hung in the air, a mix of caution and resolve. We all understood that this would be no ordinary search. As the meeting wrapped up, I felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through me. We were on the brink of something significant, a potential turning point in our quest. I reached out to Clara, who had been a steadfast supporter throughout our journey. We need to gather the community for this search, I said. Their involvement could make all the difference. Clara agreed, and we organized a community meeting that evening. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the park, locals gathered at the ranger station. There was a palpable energy in the air, a mix of hope and apprehension. I stood before the crowd, my heart racing. We're planning a search near the old ranger's cabin by the river, I announced. This is a crucial opportunity for us to come together and honor the spirit of the land. The crowd murmured in agreement, and I could see the determination in their eyes. Clara stepped forward, her voice steady. We can't just wait for answers to come to us. We must actively seek them out, not only for the boy, but for our community and the land we cherish. Her words resonated deeply, igniting a sense of purpose among the attendees. As we prepared for the search, I felt a mix of excitement and fear. The cabin was steeped in local lore, a place where the line between reality and myth blurred. Some believed it housed the spirit of a long-lost ranger, while others dismissed it as mere superstition. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something significant about it, something we needed to confront. The following day, we gathered our supplies, flashlights, first aid kits, food, and water, readying ourselves for what lay ahead. The group was a mix of rangers, local volunteers, and families eager to help. As we set out toward the river, I could feel the weight of anticipation grow heavier. We were not just searching for a boy. We were confronting our fears, our doubts, and the very essence of what it meant to coexist with the wilderness. The hike to the cabin was filled with a mixture of silence and conversation. Some shared stories of their own encounters with the park's spirit, while others reminisced about the boy's bright smile and adventurous spirit. The camaraderie was palpable, a reminder that we were all in this together. As we approached the river, the sound of rushing water filled the air, blending with the whispers of the trees. We were on the brink of something significant, a potential turning point in our quest. I reached out to Clara, who had been a steadfast supporter throughout our journey. "We need to gather the community for this search," I said. "Their involvement could make all the difference," Clara agreed, and we organized a community meeting that evening. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the park, locals gathered at the ranger station. "This is a chance for us to reclaim our story." With that, we stepped into the dim light of the cabin. The air was musty, heavy with the scent of age and neglect. Sunlight filtered through the cracks in the walls, illuminating dust motes that danced in the air. It felt as though we were preparing for a quest, one that would culminate in an encounter with the very essence of the land we sought to protect. Before dawn the next day, we set out, the sky still cloaked in darkness. The group was a mix of rangers and locals, united in purpose. As we hiked toward the river, I felt a sense of anticipation building within me. The forest around us was alive with sounds: the rustling of leaves, the distant calls of birds, and the gentle rush of water. Yet, amid the beauty, an undercurrent of tension ran through the air, a reminder of the stakes we faced. It was a testament to the spirit of those who had come before us, and I felt a renewed sense of determination to honor their legacy. Then, as we searched the final room, I caught sight of something that stopped me in my tracks. A small backpack, partially hidden beneath a loose floorboard. My heart raced as I moved closer, lifting it gently. It was worn but familiar. I recognized it. It belonged to the missing boy over here. I shouted, the urgency in my voice echoing through the cabin. The group gathered around, their expressions shifting from confusion to hope. As we examined the backpack, a mix of emotions surged within me: fear, relief, and a sense of purpose. In that moment, I realized that we were not just searching for a boy. We were reclaiming our narrative, confronting our fears, and solidifying our bond as a community. The cabin, once a symbol of dread, had transformed into a place of discovery and connection. As we prepared to leave, I glanced back at the cabin, feeling a sense of closure. We had faced our fears together and unearthed a piece of our story that had been lost. The journey ahead would still be challenging, but we were no longer alone. We had each other, and together, we would continue to honor the land, the boy, and the spirit of Yellowstone. With renewed determination, we made our way back to the ranger station, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. The climax of our journey was drawing near, and we were prepared to face it united, resilient, and filled with a sense of purpose that would guide us through the darkness. The atmosphere in Yellowstone shifted dramatically as we made our way back from the old ranger's cabin. The discovery of the boy's backpack had ignited a fire within us, but it also filled the air with an unsettling tension. We were on the brink of something profound, teetering between hope and despair. As we gathered our thoughts and prepared for the next steps in our search, I could feel an invisible thread pulling us toward a climax that would test our resolve. That evening, we convened at the ranger station, our hearts heavy yet hopeful. Clara, Tom, and I stood at the front, ready to share the news of our discovery with the assembled community. The room was filled with familiar faces, each one reflecting a mixture of anxiety and determination. We needed to harness that energy, to guide it towards a purpose. Today, we found something, I began, my voice steady despite the weight of the moment. We discovered a backpack belonging to the missing boy near the old ranger's cabin. This is a sign that we're getting closer, but it also raises questions. We need to proceed with caution. The room buzzed with murmurs, some faces lit up with hope, while others fell into shadows of doubt. Clara stepped forward, her voice ringing with strength. This is our chance to change the narrative. We have to come together and search the area more thoroughly. We owe it to the boy and his family to bring him home, Tom added, but we must remain vigilant. The legends of this land warn us to tread carefully. We are not just dealing with the physical wilderness. We may also be confronting something beyond our understanding. As we strategized, the collective determination in the room solidified. We divided into teams, assigning roles based on each person's strengths. The plan was to search not just the immediate area around the cabin, but also the riverbanks and nearby trails. It felt as though we were preparing for a quest, one that would culminate in an encounter with the very essence of the land we sought to protect. Before dawn the next day, we set out, the sky still cloaked in darkness. The group was a mix of rangers and locals, united in purpose. As we hiked toward the river, I felt a sense of anticipation building within me. The forest around us was alive with sounds: the rustling of leaves, the distant calls of birds, and the gentle rush of water. Yet, amid the beauty, an undercurrent of tension ran through the air, a reminder of the stakes we faced. As we approached the river, the sun began to rise, casting a golden hue across the landscape. The light illuminated the path ahead, revealing the beauty of the park, but also the challenges we would confront. We spread out along the riverbanks, scanning for any signs of the boy and remaining vigilant for anything unusual. Hours passed as we searched, our hearts heavy with hope and fear. I shouted, my voice filled with urgency. The group turned, eyes widening in disbelief. We rushed to the water's edge, our hearts pounding. "Can you hear us?" I called out, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. The boy turned, his eyes wide with fear and confusion. "Help," he cried, his voice trembling. "I'm stuck." Without hesitation, Tom and I quickly formulated a plan. I signaled to Tom and Clara, and together we approached the water's edge. My heart raced as I tried to discern what I had seen. It was then that I spotted a small figure, a boy, no older than 10, perched on a rock, his face pale and thin, but alive over there. I shouted, my voice filled with urgency. The group turned, eyes widening in disbelief. We rushed to the water's edge, our hearts pounding. "Can you hear us?" I called out, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. The boy turned, his eyes wide with fear and confusion. "Help," he cried, his voice trembling. "I'm stuck." Without hesitation, Tom and I quickly formulated a plan. "We'll get to him," I said, glancing at the river's flow. "It's too dangerous to cross here. We need to find a safer spot upstream." As we moved along the bank, I felt the weight of the moment pressing down on us. The boy was so close yet so far, and I could see the fear in his eyes. The legends echoed in my mind, warning of the dangers lurking in the shadows. I knew we had to act quickly, but carefully. Finally, we found a narrow section of the river where the current was calmer. "This is it," I said, adrenaline surging through me. "We'll create a human chain to reach him." The group quickly formed a line, linking arms as we waded into the water. The chill of the river sent shivers through my body, but I focused on the goal ahead. As we moved closer to the boy, I could see the relief wash over his face. "Don't worry, we're coming," I called out, urging the line forward. The water surged around us, but we pressed on, determined to reach him. When we finally reached the boy, I knelt down, trying to reassure him. "You're safe now. We're going to get you out of here." With the human chain holding steady, we carefully pulled him toward the shore. As he stumbled onto solid ground, he collapsed into my arms, sobbing with relief. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice barely audible. The group erupted into cheers, a wave of joy and relief washing over us. But as I held him, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much larger. With the boy safe, we gathered around him, ensuring he was unharmed. Clara knelt beside us, her expression a mix of relief and concern. "What happened?" she asked gently. "I got lost," he said, wiping tears from his cheeks. "I was exploring and didn't mean to go so far. I thought I could find my way back, but it got dark, and I was scared." As he spoke, I could see the weight of his experience reflected in his eyes. He was not just a boy who had wandered off. He was a reminder of our connection to this land and the importance of understanding its power. The fear that had once gripped us all began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of purpose and unity. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted again. A low growl reverberated through the trees, freezing us in our tracks. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end as I turned to look into the shadows. Emerging from the underbrush was the wolf, the guardian spirit we had encountered before. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly intensity, surveying the scene. Stunned, the group fell silent, the gravity of the moment sinking in. I could feel its presence, a reminder of the balance we had sought to restore. The wolf seemed to acknowledge the boy, its gaze softening as if recognizing the bond we had forged in our journey together. "Stay calm," I whispered to the group, my heart racing. "This is what we've been preparing for." I stepped forward, meeting the wolf's gaze. "We honor this land and the spirit that protects it. We are here to learn, to grow, and to understand." The wolf approached slowly, its movements graceful and deliberate. I could feel the collective breath of the group held tightly in anticipation. As it reached the boy, it paused, then turned to look back at us, as if inviting us to understand the deeper connections we shared with the land. In that moment, I realized the climax of our journey was not just about finding the boy, but also about confronting our fears, embracing the spirit of the wilderness, and acknowledging the lessons we had learned. The wolf was not a threat. It was a guardian, a reminder of the responsibility we bore as stewards of this land. As the wolf turned and faded back into the shadows, a wave of understanding washed over us. We were no longer just individuals in a vast landscape. We were part of a larger story, one woven together by our experiences, our losses, and our triumphs. With the boy safe and the spirit of the land acknowledged, we made our way back to the ranger station. The atmosphere was charged with a newfound energy, a sense of purpose that would guide us forward. Together, we had faced the unknown and emerged stronger, united in our commitment to honor the land and each other. The climax of our journey had brought us not just answers, but also a deeper understanding of the delicate balance between humanity and nature. As we walked side by side, we knew that this was only the beginning of a new chapter in our story, a story of growth, resilience, and an unwavering bond with the wilderness that surrounded us. As we returned to the ranger station, the weight of the journey we had undertaken settled within us. The boy, now safe in our care, symbolized not just a personal victory, but a collective triumph. We had faced the wilderness, confronted our fears, and emerged stronger as a community. The experience had transformed us, deepening our understanding of the delicate balance between humanity and nature. The legends of Yellowstone, once mere stories, had become integral to our lives. They taught us that the land is alive, filled with spirits that remind us of our responsibilities as stewards. The wolf, a guardian of the wilderness, had shown us the importance of respect and coexistence. In acknowledging its presence, we recognized the power of the natural world and our connection to it. Clara, Tom, and I reflected on the journey that had brought us together. The shared experiences of fear, hope, and ultimately, triumph had woven a tapestry of resilience. We had learned to listen to each other and to the land, fostering a sense of community that transcended our individual struggles. The search for the boy had not only led us to him, but had also united us in a deeper purpose. In the weeks that followed, the community continued to thrive. We implemented new programs focused on environmental education, encouraging locals to engage with the land in meaningful ways. Families explored the park together, discovering its wonders while instilling a sense of responsibility in their children. Clara became an advocate for wildlife conservation, sharing her newfound passion with others. Tom and Lily often led nature walks, teaching younger kids about the flora and fauna, ensuring the next generation would cherish the land. The search for the boy had become a catalyst for change, prompting us to confront not only the challenges of the wilderness, but also the fears that had held us back. We learned that growth often comes from facing the unknown, and in doing so, we found a renewed sense of purpose. Our collective journey transformed the narrative of Yellowstone from one of fear and loss to one of hope and unity. I stood at the edge of the park, overlooking the vast expanse of wilderness. I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The experiences we shared had shaped not only our understanding of the land, but also of ourselves. We were no longer just individuals navigating the wilderness. We were a community bound by shared stories and a commitment to protect the beauty that surrounded us. In the heart of Yellowstone, we had forged a new beginning. The echoes of our journey would resonate through the generations, reminding us that with courage, compassion, and unity, we could overcome any challenge. Together, we would continue to honor the spirit of the land, ensuring that its stories would live on for years to come. Months later, the community celebrated its resilience with an annual festival honoring Yellowstone's spirit. Families gathered to share stories, enjoy local art, and engage in educational activities about wildlife conservation. Clara's leadership inspired many, while Tom and Lily's nature walks became a beloved tradition. The boy, now fully recovered, stood alongside his peers, a symbol of hope and unity. As laughter filled the air, it was clear that the bonds forged through adversity had transformed our community. The wilderness, once a source of fear, had become a sanctuary of strength and connection for all who called it home. Join us in celebrating and protecting the beauty of Yellowstone and the natural world around us. Get involved in local conservation efforts, participate in community events, and educate yourself about the importance of wildlife and ecosystem preservation. The wilderness, once a source of fear, had become a sanctuary of strength and connection for all who called it home. Join us in celebrating and protecting the beauty of Yellowstone and the natural world around us. Get involved in local conservation efforts, participate in community events, and educate yourself about the importance of wildlife and ecosystem preservation.